If your family deserve and can afford a super luxury 7-seater, then the choice on offer isn't actually that wide. You could opt for a large SUV, but if you don't live on a Grampian hillside, is there really any point? Or you could buy a large people carrier in the plushest form possible and be mistaken for an upmarket airport taxi service. Which leaves just one other option. This one, Mercedes' much improved 7-seater A-class.
Think of any car that might be potentially large. A 4x4, a big MPV, a luxury saloon, or maybe one of those huge estate cars. Now try and meld all those images together into one. Or if you can't manage that, take a look at a Mercedes A-class instead. Originally launched in 2006, this is a design that takes its inspiration from all these categories, in the process creating what its makers claim is something completely different. It ought to have been a refreshing change for luxury sector customers tired of big 4x4s and MPVs in their search for more space. Unfortunately for Mercedes, there weren't really enough of those sort of people prepared to overlook the high running costs and slightly awkward looks of the original version of this car. Hence the need for this much improved restyled version, launched here in the autumn of 2010. Smarter, cleaner, faster and more frugal, this is the car the original should always have been. Now this time around, Mercedes isn't wasting our time with 5 or 6 seat layouts or big thirsty petrol engines. Just a couple of torquey diesels, the choice of standard or long wheelbase body styles and the option of 2 or 4-wheel drive. Both R-Class variants, as before, are built stateside alongside Mercedes M-Class and GL-Class luxury SUVs at the company's Tuscaloosa plant in Alabama. Not only because all three models are basically the same underneath, but also because no fewer than 60% of all the sales of this car will stay stateside. And you can see why at first glance. Even the shorter wheelbase model is over 16 foot long, so it's certainly a car that's ideal for the land of going large. But can it now at last make sense here as an alternative to the plushest 7-seater SUVs and MPVs? Let's find out. Stick the steering column mounted selector for the improved, more responsive 7G-tronic automatic transmission into drive, and after a rapid getaway, 60 from rest takes a fraction over 7.5 seconds for the R350 CDI variant in question. That's the one I'm driving here, despite the fact that this model must carry around a weighty set of 4-wheel drive mechanicals. Now there is a less powerful R-Class model on sale in the UK. It's the slightly shorter standard wheelbase 2-wheel drive R300 CDI Blue Efficiency model, introduced in a rather half-hearted attempt to satisfy the green lobby. It is, though, the more powerful all-wheel drive R350 CDI that best delivers the complete R-Class driving experience. Around town, driving this car will take a little adjustment. Something this big is never going to ideally suit an urban setting, and this design's coupe-like curves, though pleasing to the eye, don't allow for quite as much glass area as you get in something boxier. Parking isn't that easy either when you first try it, given a vehicle width of nearly 2 metres, and side as well as rear parking sensors would help here. There's also a smallish rear window, thick rear D-pillars, and all those rear head restraints don't ideally help either. Plus the front end is almost completely invisible from the driver's seat. Apparently some of the German designers wanted to mount a 3-pointed star on the front end as a sightline, and that would have helped. For all that, you do quickly adjust. There'll still be plenty of these showing up on the school run. And around the bends? Well, if the liberal use of the term sports tourer throughout Mercedes marketing for this car leads you to expect handling akin to the kind of comparably priced plusher BMW 5 Series Touring or Audi A6 Avant that you could get for this kind of money, then you might be setting your sights a little high. Still, this R-Class can be threaded remarkably quickly along a twisting secondary road, though the Stuttgart engineers have pretty much had to throw the kitchen sink at the chassis in order to achieve that. Standard equipment includes air suspension for the rear wheels, an advanced ESP stability control system, and if you go for this R350 CDI flagship model, you also get a clever 4 ETS traction control system and the reassurance of permanent 4MATIC four-wheel drive. I'd suggest that you complete things by ticking the box to order the optional Airmatic all-round air suspension, which also comes with an adaptive damping system that gives you a sport mode via the dash button here that tautens things up for twisting country roads and reduces body roll, although it does make the ride a bit jiggly. The same system lowers the car by 20mm when you're at high speeds on the highway to reduce wind resistance. The same Airmatic setup is also capable of raising the car by 80mm for extra ground clearance on rough roads. But this isn't a car for tackling rough terrain. Despite this R350 CDI model's 4MATIC four-wheel drive system, Mercedes firmly rejects the idea of considering this R-Class as being any kind of SUV. Even the most loyal advocates of the original version of this car would have to concede that its rather awkward front-end looks didn't exactly help its sales prospects. Now, if that put you off in the past, take another look now. This revised version is a much more self-assured proposition. Its horizontally structured bonnet offering a far more harmonious look. The front wings, front grille, headlamps and bumpers have all been redesigned, with the almost mandatory today trendy daytime LED running lights added in below these bi-xenon headlamp units. But in any case, you don't buy a Learjet and worry about what it looks like from the outside. No, what you'll talk about with this car is how it makes you feel from one of the 7 seats in the cabin. And the answer is very comfortable, at least if you've opted for the long wheelbase R350 CDI variant that I've got here, a car bigger even than Mercedes' huge S-Class luxury saloon. If that pricks your green conscience, then you can order an R-Class in standard length R300 CDI guise, but doing so is a bit like going large at McDonald's and ordering small fries. In other words, you've rather missed the point, and in this case, missed the opportunity to turn this third row of seating into everyday usable adult berths rather than just occasional kiddie seats. Mind you, it's one thing to make a car big, quite another to make it as versatile as this one. Over 64% of its body length is available to occupants, and with up to 1,027mm of rear headroom, there's a sense of spaciousness and airiness in the cabin that executive estates and luxury SUVs simply can't match. The doors at the rear are bigger than those of Mercedes' luxury Maybach limousine, and they open to reveal an interior that has a level of practicality that shames that of some large MPVs. And the middle row of seats, well, it's a very comfortable place to be, provided that you've not been confined to this rather uncomfortable centre seat here. It's particularly luxurious if you've got these optional DVD screens that are built into the front seat backs. The middle row itself is positioned 920mm in front of the third row behind. But if someone particularly long-legged has been stuck back there and you want to increase their legroom, then it's good to know that the seats slide forwards, backwards and forwards, so that you can increase third row occupants' legroom from 920 to 990mm. Access to the third row seating is a bit awkward unless the middle seat is pushed right forward, but you quickly get used to it. More of an issue is the fact that the high floor necessitated by the four-wheel drive mechanicals means that with all 7 seats in use, you've got a luggage capacity of just 266 litres, enough for no more than a couple of big bags, though you do get a useful underfloor compartment for valuables. The 2 rearmost rows of seats fold flat into the floor, enabling a massive 2,385 litres of load capacity spread across a vast 2,286mm long loading platform. Try finding an estate car that can match that, Even the biggest one I can think of, Mercedes E-class estate, has only 1,910 litres. At the wheel it also feels light and airy, even if you haven't gone for the optional full-length panoramic glass roof. There's all the usual Mercedes attention to detail, the controls all fall nicely to hand, and there's lots of nice brushed aluminium trim. Depending on the deal that you get and the spec that you choose, you'll probably end up paying somewhere between £42,000 and £48,000 for your Mercedes R-Class, with a premium of at least £4,000 to go from the entry-level standard wheelbase two-wheel drive R300 CDI Blue Efficiency model to the top-of-the-line four-wheel drive R350 that we're looking at here. Pay the extra and do the job properly is my advice. Rivals to this car from outside the Mercedes family are pretty hard to tie down. You could end up going for a large 7-seat luxury SUV like, say, an Audi Q7, but end up paying for off-road ability you don't really need. Or do without four-wheel drive and opt for a big plush MPV like, say, Chrysler's Grand Voyager, and end up looking like an airport taxi service. A large executive estate, well, that wouldn't really give you a properly usable third row of seats. And something more modern like BMW's 5 Series Gran Turismo makes a decent stab at the whole R-Class concept, but really just offers 5 seats and ends up being more sporting than sensible. So love it or hate it, there really is nothing quite like this Mercedes. Well, all of which means that I think that potential buyers for this car will probably be only considering rivals from within the showroom that they'll find this one in. So let's do that. If you compare an R to a big E-class estate, well, a comparable E350 CDI compared to an R350 CDI, the R will cost you about £5,000 more, which I think is quite reasonable considering that in the R-Class you get a bigger car with four-wheel drive and, of course, those 7 seats. This R-Class also looks decent value compared to Mercedes ML Class luxury SUV. An ML 350 CDI is only a couple of £1,000s less than an R350 CDI. And of course the R offers 7 seats to the ML Class's 5. If you want a luxury Mercedes SUV with 7 seats, you'll need to find around £12,000 to go from an R350 CDI to a GL 350 CDI SUV. In terms of the R-Class model range, the choice is actually pretty simple. Quite honestly, I'd ignore the entry-level two-wheel drive R300 CDI Blue Efficiency model. It seems a bit ridiculous to buy something over 16 foot long that still can't offer properly usable space in all 3 rows of seats for 7 adults. The top-of-the-line R350 CDI 4MATIC variant that we've been looking at here, in contrast, has properly usable adult space for 7, and its extra power and four-wheel drive grip is nice to have. Whichever model you choose, standard kit includes alloy wheels, an air conditioning system the size of a small power station, able to keep cabin air purer than a bank vault, the essential parking aids of course, a partially electrically adjustable driver's seat that's also heated, a high quality stereo with AUX in connection, then you've got electrically operated and heated mirrors, privacy glass, cruise control with a Speedtronic speed limiter and rain sensing wipers. Safety wise, there's everything you'd expect and a bit more. So you get a complete restraint system with 8 airbags covering all 3 rows of seats, NeckPro anti-whiplash front head restraints and Isofix child seat fastenings. There's also an adaptive braking system able to flash your rear brake lights to warn following motorists in brake assist emergency stops. On top of that, there's an ESP stability control system with built-in tyre pressure monitoring and a trailer stabilisation system. Oh, and pre-safe, an anticipatory occupant protection system that senses when an accident is inevitable and then immediately sets all the car's safety systems to react accordingly. The average fuel consumption figures served up by the R300 CDI and R350 CDI models are pretty astonishing considering their bulk and the performance they serve up. the entry-level R300 CDI carries blue efficiency badges to remind the green lobby that here Mercedes has tried especially hard to reduce this model's carbon footprint. And the result of all their efforts is actually quite a creditable 37.2 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 201 grams per kilometre of CO2. Across the board, efficiency improvements like a faster acting torque converter in the improved 7G Tronic 7-speed automatic transmission that decouples the engine at standstill mean that even this R350 CDI four-wheel drive model manages 33.2 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 223 grams per kilometre of CO2. Insurance groups range between 44 and 48. And residual values? Well, they're not quite as strong as with other Mercedes models, but they're a lot better than they used to be. Whether you opt for the two-wheel drive R300 CDI Blue Efficiency or the four-wheel drive R350 CDI 4MATIC, independent forecasts suggest that you should get as much as 47.5% of your money back after 4 years. Much of the secret lies in correctly specifying your car and not going mad on the options list. One exception, though, on that front is the need to tick the box for the huge panoramic glass roof, which adds immeasurably to the whole R-Class travelling experience. Now, you could spend ages trying to work out whether the Mercedes R-Class is an MPV, a 4x4 or an oversized estate. I wouldn't worry about it. Just take it at face value and you'll find it a luxurious 7-seat vehicle to suit a demanding but well-heeled family. Such customers will find the usefully improved version of this unusual car a classier act than ever. With a more confident look and two frugal yet more powerful diesel engines, it actually makes arguably more sense than any super luxury SUV. And it's a Mercedes-Benz, which at the end of the day may be actually all you need to know.